I was 3 vodka sodas deep at Murphy's Tavern on a Tuesday night when a man who looked like he stepped out of a Ralph Lauren ad slid into the booth across from me. His eyes, this piercing gray blue that reminded me of Lake Michigan in winter, locked onto mine with an intensity that made my stomach drop. "Your husband is seeing my wife," he said, his voice low and steady, like he was commenting on the weather instead of detonating a bomb in the middle of my already crumbling life. I remember thinking two things simultaneously. First, that this stranger smelled expensive, like cedar and something I could name, but probably cost more than my car payment. Second, that he was absolutely, devastatingly wrong. Because my husband Todd was many things. Boring, predictable, obsessed with his fantasy football league, the kind of guy who wore New Balance sneakers unironically. But a cheater? No way. Except the stranger, who introduced himself as Garrett, pulled out his phone and showed me a photo that made the vodka in my stomach turn to acid. There was Todd, my Todd, standing outside the Whole Foods on Clark Street with a woman I'd never seen before. A blonde. Naturally, a blonde. Because apparently my husband was having an affair and couldn't even be original about it. "I think we need to talk," Garrett said, and ordered us both another round. That was 3 weeks ago. And what I discovered after that conversation. It gets so much worse than I ever imagined. If you think you know where this is going, trust me, you don't. This story has more twists than Lakeshore Drive during rush hour. Hit that like button if you've ever had someone drop a truth bomb on you in the most unexpected place. Subscribe because what happens next will have you questioning everything, and drop a comment telling me, would you want to know if your spouse was cheating, even if the truth came from a complete stranger? Turn on those notifications, because the stories I'm bringing you aren't your typical drama. They're the kind that'll keep you up at night. Now, let me tell you what really happened. My name is Vanessa Torres, I'm 38 years old, and up until that night at Murphy's, I thought I had my life pretty well figured out. I'd been married to Todd Brennan for 12 years. We lived in a decent 2-bedroom condo in Lincoln Park, had a golden retriever named Biscuit, and followed what I thought was the standard Chicago middle-class script. Brunch on Sundays, occasional Cubs games, annual trip to Door County. Nothing exciting, but nothing terrible either. I worked as a junior editor at a mid-sized publishing house, the kind of job that sounds more glamorous than it is. Most of my days involved reading manuscripts that would never see the light of day and attending meetings that could have been emails. Todd worked in IT for a pharmaceutical company, which meant I understood approximately 0% of what he did all day. That Tuesday, I'd gone to Murphy's because Todd was supposedly working late. Again. He'd been working late a lot recently, probably 2 or 3 times a week for the past couple months. I didn't think much of it. Actually, that's a lie. I did think about it. I thought maybe we were drifting. I thought maybe we'd become one of those couples who stays together out of habit rather than love. I thought maybe I should suggest couples therapy or a vacation or something. I didn't think he was screwing someone else. Garrett Patterson, yes, he had one of those names that sounded like he belonged at a country club, sat across from me with the posture of someone who'd never slouched in his life. He was probably 40, maybe 42, with salt and pepper hair that was definitely professionally styled. His wedding ring was thick gold, probably custom-made. Everything about him screamed money in a way that made my Target blouse feel even cheaper. "How long have you known?" I asked after he showed me that first photo. My voice sounded strange, like it was coming from underwater. "About 6 weeks," Garrett said. He had this measured way of speaking, each word carefully selected. "I hired a private investigator after I found a receipt in my wife's car. Dinner for 2 at RPM Italian. I was in Boston that night. RPM Italian.
Jesus.
Todd had told me we couldn't afford to go there for our anniversary last year." Garrett opened a folder, an actual manila folder, like we were in a noir film, and spread several photos across the sticky bar table. Todd and the blonde getting coffee at Intelligentsia. Todd and the blonde going into a residential building in Wicker Park. Todd and the blonde holding hands as they walked along the river. "That's Natalie," Garrett said, tapping one of the photos. "My wife. We've been married 15 years. 2 kids, Harrison is 10, Stella just turned 7. The way he said their names, with this tender precision, made my throat tight. This wasn't just about betrayal. This was about kids who were about to have their worlds imploded. I don't understand, I said, even though I understood perfectly. How did they even meet? Yoga class, Garrett said, and something about that detail made me want to laugh hysterically. That hot yoga place in River North. The one with the celebrity instructor everyone's obsessed with. Core Power. Todd had joined Core Power 6 months ago, claiming he needed to work on his flexibility for his back pain. I'd thought it was sweet that he was finally taking his health seriously. I'd even encouraged him, for God's sake. What do you want from me? I asked. Garrett leaned back, his expression unreadable. I want them to face consequences. Real ones. Not just a divorce where they end up together anyway, playing house with my kids every other weekend. I want them to understand what they've destroyed. There was something in his voice, something cold and calculating that should have scared me. But I was 3 drinks in and my entire life was revealing itself to be a lie, so instead I said, "What did you have in mind?" That's when Garrett smiled. Not a warm smile. The kind of smile a shark might give right before it strikes. Over the next week, Garrett and I became unlikely partners. We met 3 more times, twice at Murphy's and once at a Starbucks in a neighborhood where neither of our spouses would see us. Each time, he brought more evidence. The PI he'd hired was thorough. There were credit card statements showing hotel rooms. Text message records. Apparently Natalie had gotten sloppy with her phone. Even a recording of a voicemail where Todd's voice, that voice I'd listened to for 12 years, said things to Natalie that he'd never said to me. I love you more than I knew I could love anyone. That one cut deeper than all the photos combined. Here's what I know, Garrett said during our 3rd meeting, sliding his MacBook across the table so I could see the spreadsheet he'd created. Because of course this man had made a spreadsheet. They're planning to leave us. Both of them. Todd's been looking at apartments. Natalie opened a separate bank account 2 months ago and has been siphoning money into it. I stared at the numbers, the dates, the meticulous documentation of my husband's betrayal. When? Best guess? After the holidays. Todd doesn't want to ruin Christmas, apparently. Natalie mentioned to her sister, who I'm still friendly with, thankfully, that she's planning a big life change in January. So Todd was going to sit through Christmas with me. Open presents. Pretend everything was fine. Then drop the bomb in the cold, gray depths of a Chicago January. How considerate. I have a proposal, Garrett said. He was drinking black coffee, no sugar, like some kind of psychopath. We don't confront them yet. We wait. We gather more evidence. And when they're ready to leave, when they think they've got it all figured out, we strike in a way that ensures they lose everything that matters. Like what? I asked, though part of me already knew I was going to agree to whatever he suggested. The rage that had been building in my chest over the past week needed an outlet, and Garrett was offering me one. Natalie's up for partner at her law firm, he said. Morgan and Reed. Very prestigious. Very conservative. They don't like scandal. If certain information about her personal life became public at the wrong time, they'd pass her over, I finished. At minimum. Possibly fire her for moral turpitude. There's a clause in her contract about maintaining the firm's reputation. And Todd. Garrett's smile widened. Todd's company has very strict policies about ethics and personal conduct. Something about their government contracts requiring employees to maintain certain standards. If HR received an anonymous report about an affair that started on company time, using company resources, he let the implication hang in the air. This was crazy. We were talking about deliberately destroying 2 people's careers, their reputations, their lives. This wasn't who I was. I voted Democrat, volunteered at a literacy program on weekends, recycled religiously. I was supposed to be the good person in this scenario. But when I closed my eyes, all I could see was Todd's face in those photos. The way he looked at Natalie, like she was the sun, and he'd been living in darkness his whole life. Okay, I said. I'm in. The next 3 weeks were the strangest of my life. I went home every night to my cheating husband and played the role of oblivious wife. Todd would come home from work, or from hot yoga, or from wherever he'd actually been, and I'd ask about his day. We'd eat dinner, Usually something I'd picked up from Trader Joe's because I'd long since stopped putting effort into cooking. We'd watch TV. He'd scroll through his phone, probably texting Natalie. I'd sit there with Biscuit's head in my lap, mentally cataloging everything I wanted to say, but couldn't.
Not yet.
The hardest part was pretending I didn't know. Pretending I still trusted him. Pretending I gave a damn about his fantasy football updates or his opinions on the latest IT system his company was implementing. Meanwhile, Garrett and I continued meeting. We'd progressed from vodka sodas and coffee to actually grabbing dinner, always at places far from our respective neighborhoods. He told me about his kids, how Harrison wanted to be a marine biologist and Stella was obsessed with Taylor Swift. He showed me photos of family vacations to places I couldn't afford, Tuscany, the Maldives, Banff. I told him about my job, about the novel I'd been supposedly writing for 5 years but had barely outlined, about how Todd and I had been trying to have a kid for years before we quietly gave up and never really talked about it again. "Did you love him?" Garrett asked one night over Korean barbecue in Bucktown. I thought about it.
Really thought about it.
I think so. In the beginning, he was the first person who made me feel like I was enough, you know? I grew up with parents who always wanted me to be more successful, more ambitious, more everything.
Todd was just satisfied with me.
It felt good. And now I realize that maybe satisfied isn't the same as in love. Maybe we both settled. I poked at my kimchi. What about you and Natalie? Garrett's jaw tightened. I loved her. I still love her, which is probably pathetic. We met in law school. She was brilliant, top of the class. I thought I was lucky to be with someone so driven, so passionate. He laughed bitterly. Turns out all that passion wasn't reserved for me. There was something happening between us in those meetings, something neither of us acknowledged directly. It wasn't quite attraction, or maybe it was, but buried under layers of anger and betrayal and shared trauma. It was understanding, recognition. Like we'd both been playing roles in our marriages for so long that we'd forgotten what it felt like to be seen. Do you ever wonder if we're the problem? I asked. Like, maybe they cheated because we weren't enough? Garrett reached across the table and grabbed my hand.
His was warm, solid.
No, he said firmly. They cheated because they're selfish. Because they wanted something new and exciting without doing the hard work of either fixing their marriages or ending them honestly. This isn't on us, Vanessa. I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to believe him so badly. By mid-December, Garrett's PI had compiled enough evidence to sink a battleship. We had everything: receipts, photos, witness statements from a hotel clerk who'd seen them together multiple times. We even had access to some of Todd's work emails, thanks to the fact that he'd left his laptop open one night and I'd installed monitoring software while he was in the shower. Was that legal? Probably not. Did I care? Also no. It's time, Garrett said. We were at Murphy's again. It had become our unofficial headquarters. The bartender knew our orders by now. Natalie's partnership decision is happening the second week of January. I've already drafted the anonymous letter to the firm's ethics committee. Very detailed. Very damning. And Todd. I have a call scheduled with his company's HR director. Anonymous tip line. They take these things very seriously, especially with their government clearances at stake. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I just felt tired. Then what? We divorce them, they end up together anyway, and we just move on? Actually, Garrett said, and there was something different in his voice. Something uncertain. I've been thinking about that. He pulled out another folder, this man and his folders, but this one didn't contain evidence of infidelity. It contained financial documents. Natalie and I have significant assets, he explained. The house alone is worth $2.3 million. There's a vacation property in Lake Geneva, investment accounts, the kids' trust funds. Illinois is an equitable distribution state, which means in a divorce, everything gets split fairly, not necessarily equally, but fairly. Okay. But if Natalie is fired from her firm for cause, her earning potential plummets. She'd be lucky to get a job at a strip mall tax prep place after the reputation hit. Which means in the divorce settlement, The judge would likely award me primary custody and the majority of assets, since I'd be the stable parent with reliable income. I was starting to see where this was going. And Todd. If Todd loses his job, especially for an ethics violation, he'll struggle to find comparable work. His income drops, his attractiveness as a partner drops. And, honestly, Garrett leaned forward. I think once the consequences hit, once their fantasy falls apart, they won't even want each other anymore. These affairs thrive on secrecy and excitement. Take that away, force them to face reality, it crumbles. So you destroy their careers, take your kids, keep your money, and they end up with nothing. Yes. And what do I get out of this? I asked. Todd and I don't have kids. We don't have much money. I get to divorce my cheating husband and split our mediocre assets while dealing with the fact that my marriage was a lie.
Great.
Garrett was quiet for a long moment. Then, you could move on. Actually move on. Not carry this resentment into your next relationship. You'd know you didn't just roll over and accept being treated like garbage. He wasn't wrong, but it still felt hollow. Christmas was excruciating. Todd bought me a necklace from Nordstrom, something generic and safe that required zero thought. I bought him a new watch because I'd already ordered it before I knew he was a cheating bastard, and returning it felt like too much effort. We went to his parents' house in Naperville on Christmas Eve. His mother, Diane, made her usual dry turkey and asked when we were going to give her grandchildren. Todd deflected like he always did. I smiled and said, maybe next year, while internally screaming. On Christmas morning, Todd made his famous peppermint pancakes. We opened presents with biscuit tearing through the wrapping paper. We watched A Christmas Story on TBS. It was all so normal, so perfectly ordinary, that I almost convinced myself I'd imagined everything. That Garrett and his photos and his spreadsheets were just some weird fever dream. Then Todd's phone buzzed with a text. He glanced at it, smiled, this small, private smile, and quickly turned the screen face down. That smile told me everything I needed to know. The first week of January, everything happened fast. On Monday, Morgan and Reed's ethics committee received a detailed, anonymous letter outlining Natalie Patterson's affair, including dates, locations, and evidence that she'd lied to the firm about her whereabouts during several business trips. The letter noted that this behavior violated the firm's moral character clause and suggested that someone capable of such sustained deception couldn't be trusted to represent the firm's clients ethically. On Tuesday, Todd's company received an anonymous call to their ethics hotline. The caller provided specific information about an inappropriate relationship that had begun at a company-sponsored wellness program, included instances of Todd accessing personal websites on company time and devices, and suggested that such behavior from someone with security clearance posed a potential liability. On Wednesday, Natalie was called into a meeting with the senior partners. She was home by noon, unemployed. On Thursday, Todd was placed on administrative leave pending investigation. On Friday, Garrett and I met at Murphy's one last time. Natalie's devastated, he said. He looked tired, like he hadn't slept in days. She knows I did this. Can't prove it, but she knows. Todd's confused, I said. Doesn't understand how anyone found out. He actually asked me if I'd noticed anyone following him. I said no. The PI says they've been fighting. Todd and Natalie. Lots of phone calls that end with someone hanging up. The pressure's getting to them. I sipped my vodka soda. It tasted like victory should taste. It didn't. So what now? Now I file for divorce, Garrett said. Now I fight for primary custody, which I'll get because I'm the stable parent with a career and a clean record. Now I explain to my kids why their mother isn't living with us anymore and hope they don't hate me for it. She'll tell them you ruined her career.
Probably.
But I have every text message, every photo, every piece of evidence. She can try to play victim, but the truth is pretty damning. I thought about Harrison and Stella, about how they'd grow up knowing their mother had destroyed their family. Do you feel good about this? Garrett stared into his coffee.
No.
But I feel like justice was served. That has to count for something. I confronted Todd on a Saturday afternoon in mid-January. He was on the couch watching the Blackhawks game, Biscuit curled up next to him. I'd just gotten back from a morning run along the lake, the kind of bitterly cold run where your lungs burn and your face goes numb, but you keep going because the pain feels good, feels real. We need to talk, I said, standing between him and the TV. Todd looked annoyed. Can it wait until intermission?
No.
Something in my voice made him sit up straighter. What's wrong? I pulled out my phone and showed him one of the photos Garrett had given me. Todd and Natalie outside Whole Foods. His face went white. Vanessa,
Don't, I said.
My voice was surprisingly steady. Don't insult me by lying. I know everything. I've known for weeks. How long, Todd? How long have you been sleeping with her? He opened his mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. 6 months. 6 months. Half a year of lies. Half a year of coming home to me after being with her. Were you ever going to tell me? Or were you just going to wait until after Christmas, find an apartment, and leave? His silence was answer enough. You know what's funny? I said, and I was surprised to hear myself laugh. I thought maybe we were just in a rut. I thought maybe we needed to try harder, go to therapy, reconnect. I thought the problem was that we'd gotten too comfortable. Vanessa, did you know she's married? Did you know she has kids? A 10-year-old boy and a 7-year-old girl who are about to watch their family fall apart because their mom couldn't keep her yoga pants on. Todd's face reddened. It wasn't like that. Natalie and we connected. Really connected. It wasn't just physical. Oh, well, as long as it was a deep spiritual connection, then it's totally fine that you betrayed 12 years of marriage. You don't understand, Todd said, standing up. Biscuit, sensing the tension, slunk off to his bed. Things with us have been dead for years. We're roommates, Vanessa. When's the last time we actually talked about anything that mattered? When's the last time you looked at me like you were glad I came home? His words hit harder than I expected, because he wasn't entirely wrong. We had become roommates. We had stopped trying. But that didn't excuse what he'd done. So instead of talking to me about it, instead of suggesting we get help or admitting you were unhappy, you decided to screw someone else. Very mature, Todd. I'm not proud of how it happened, he said, and he actually had the audacity to look hurt. But I'm not sorry I met Natalie. She makes me feel alive again. She makes me feel like I matter. And I didn't. Not for a long time, no. At least he was being honest now. I want you out, I said. By the end of the month. We'll handle the divorce however we need to, but I want you gone. Todd nodded slowly. For what it's worth, I never meant to hurt you. But you did. And here's the thing, Todd. You can't even claim you did it for true love. Because Natalie? She just lost her job. The big fancy partnership she was up for?
Gone.
Her husband knows everything. Her reputation is destroyed. So, whatever fantasy you two were building, it's over. You threw away our marriage for nothing. I watched the realization hit him. How did you? Does it matter? Actions have consequences. You both learned that the hard way. Todd moved out 3 weeks later. He took his clothes, his gaming consoles, about half our books, and the coffee maker I never liked anyway. He left behind our shared life, our shared friends, our shared dog. I kept Biscuit. Todd didn't even fight me on it. I heard through mutual acquaintances that he and Natalie were still trying to make it work. They'd moved in together to some budget apartment in Pilsen. Todd found a new job eventually, something in IT, but at a smaller company with lower pay. Natalie was apparently working at a friend's boutique law practice, handling small claims cases and traffic tickets. Nothing like the prestigious partnership she'd lost. Garrett and I stopped meeting at Murphy's. We texted occasionally, updates on the divorces, which were proceeding about as messily as expected. His lawyer was good. Mine was adequate. We were both going to be fine, financially speaking. One night in early March, my phone buzzed with a text from him. Divorce is final. I have primary custody. The kids are adjusting. How are you holding up? I was sitting on my couch, Biscuit's head in my lap, watching the Great British Baking Show, and eating takeout Thai food from the place that always got my order slightly wrong. My divorce wouldn't be final for another 2 months, but Todd was gone, and the condo felt both emptier and somehow more like mine. Surviving, I texted back. Still processing everything. Want to grab dinner sometime? Just as friends. Or fellow survivors. Whatever we are now. I stared at that message for a long time. Garrett and I had been through something intense together. We'd bonded over betrayal, connected over revenge. But what were we without that shared anger? Did we actually like each other, or had we just needed someone who understood? Maybe, I typed. Let me figure out who I am post-divorce first. Fair enough, he replied. I'm here when you're ready. The thing nobody tells you about revenge is that it doesn't actually make you feel better. Sure, there was satisfaction in knowing that Todd and Natalie faced consequences for their actions. There was justice in watching their perfect fantasy crumble under the weight of reality. But it didn't unbreak my heart. It didn't give me back the years I'd spent building a life with someone who decided I wasn't enough. It didn't answer the question that kept me up at night. How did I not see it coming? My therapist, because of course I started seeing a therapist, said that wasn't the right question. The right question was, what do I want my life to look like now? I didn't have an answer yet, but I was working on it. I started writing again. Actually writing, not just thinking about writing. The novel I'd been avoiding for 5 years started pouring out of me, a story about betrayal and revenge, and the messy complexity of human relationships. My agent thought it had potential. A publisher was interested. I adopted a second dog, a rescue pit bull named Pancake, who was terrified of everything but loved biscuit immediately. I took a pottery class and was terrible at it but enjoyed it anyway. I went to therapy every week and cried through most sessions. I learned that healing wasn't linear. Some days I felt strong and independent and grateful that Todd had left because it meant I could finally become the person I was supposed to be. Other days I felt worthless and used and convinced I'd never trust anyone again. Most days were somewhere in between. It's been 6 months since that night at Murphy's. 6 months since Garrett sat down across from me and dropped a bomb in the middle of my life. 6 months since I decided that if I was going down, I was taking everyone with me. I don't regret what we did, but I don't feel proud of it either. It exists in this gray area of my life. Necessary, maybe, but not noble. Justice served, perhaps, but at what cost? Todd texts me occasionally, usually about logistics, dividing up last pieces of shared property, finalizing paperwork. Once, he texted to say he was sorry.
I didn't respond.
What was there to say? Sorry doesn't unwind 6 months of lies. Sorry doesn't rebuild trust that's been shattered. Natalie apparently filed for divorce from Garrett too. I heard they had a brutal custody battle. Garrett won like he knew he would. Harrison and Stella spend alternate weekends with their mother in her tiny apartment. I wonder what she tells them about why things changed. I wonder if they'll hate her, or if they'll understand when they're older that people are complicated and messy and capable of both deep love and deep selfishness. As for Garrett and me, we finally had that dinner. Just dinner, nothing more. We talked about our kids, well, his kids, our jobs, our lives post-implosion. It was nice, comfortable, but there was also this unspoken acknowledgement that we'd been partners in something dark, and maybe that wasn't the foundation for anything healthy moving forward. Do you think we're bad people? I asked him over dessert. Garrett considered the question seriously. I think we're people who got hurt and struck back. Whether that makes us bad. He shrugged. I guess it depends on who's judging. I'm judging, I said. I'm judging myself every day. And what's the verdict? I thought about it.
Really thought about it.
I think I'm someone who's still figuring out how to be okay with what happened. All of it. What they did. What we did. Who I am now. That's fair, Garrett said. I think that's all any of us can do. Sometimes I think about alternate timelines. Versions of my life where Garrett never approached me at Murphy's. Where I discovered Todd's affair on my own, confronted him, divorced him quietly, without the revenge plot. Where maybe Todd and I went to therapy and worked through our problems and stayed together. Where I never met Natalie or Garrett or learned that love can curdle into something ugly and vindictive. Would those versions of me be happier? More whole? Less damaged? I don't know. And honestly, it doesn't matter. Because this is the timeline I'm living in. This is the story that happened. I can't rewrite it any more than I can unread a book or unsee a photo. What I can do is decide what comes next. Last week, I signed the final divorce papers. My lawyer called to tell me it was done. 12 years of marriage dissolved into a legal document and a division of assets. I felt nothing. Then I felt everything. Then I poured myself a vodka soda, toasted to the ghost of my marriage, and let myself cry. Then I dried my eyes, called my sister, and started planning a trip to Ireland. Because I'd always wanted to go, and Todd had always said it was too expensive, and now I could make my own decisions about where to spend my money and my time and my life. Garrett texted me a few days ago. "How are you?" I sent him a photo of biscuit and pancake cuddled together on my couch, with a caption, "Getting there." He replied, "Same. The kids are doing better. I'm doing better. Still processing everything, but better. Think we'll ever talk about what we did?" I typed. "Probably not," he sent back. "Some things are better left in the past."
He was probably right.
What would we even say? That we'd been justified? That revenge had been the right call? That destroying two people's careers and lives had been worth it? I'm not sure I believe any of that. But I'm also not sure I regret it. The truth is, I don't know how this story ends. I don't know if I'll eventually forgive Todd, or if forgiveness is even something he deserves or I need to give. I don't know if Garrett and I will stay friends or drift apart as we build new lives from the wreckage of our old ones. I don't know if Todd and Natalie will last, if their relationship can survive outside the exciting secrecy of an affair, in the harsh light of consequences and reality. What I do know is this. I'm still here, still standing, still figuring out who Vanessa Torres is when she's not someone's wife, not someone's other half, not part of a we. Some days that feels liberating. Other days it feels terrifying. Most days it feels like both. I still go to Murphy's sometimes. I sit in different booths now, never the one where Garrett first approached me. The bartender still knows my order. The vodka still tastes the same. But I'm different now. Harder in some ways. More cautious. Less willing to believe in fairy tales or forever or people who say they love you. But also, and this surprised me, more hopeful. Because if I survived this, if I could walk through fire and come out the other side still breathing, still writing, still capable of loving my dogs and enjoying pottery class and planning trips to Ireland, then maybe I'm stronger than I thought. Maybe I'm enough all on my own. Maybe the story of my life doesn't need a happy ending or perfect resolution. Maybe it just needs to be true, messy and complicated and real. And maybe that's enough. So that's my story. A gorgeous man sat down beside me and detonated my life, and I detonated back. Was it right? Was it wrong? I honestly still don't know. But if this story taught me anything, it's that life isn't neat or fair, and sometimes you have to make impossible choices with no good answers. If you've made it this far, do me a favor. Like this video if you've ever had your world turned upside down and had to figure out who you were in the aftermath. Subscribe because I've got more stories about the messy, complicated reality of being human. Comment and tell me. Do you think revenge is ever justified? Would you have done what Garrett and I did? And where are you watching from? I love knowing there are people all over who understand that life is just complicated. Hit those notifications so you don't miss what I'm sharing next. Thanks for listening. Thanks for not judging. Or, if you're judging, thanks for sticking around anyway.